right. Good evening, everybody. Once again, I'm honored to be back in my cultural program, Two Writers in a Book. Our guest tonight is a very special lady, a role model that we all should look up to, an Iranian-Canadian writer, born in Tehran, best known for her internationally acclaimed memoir, Prisoners of Tehran, that was released in 2007. The book recounts her experience as a teenager imprisoned in Evin prison after the 1979 Iranian Revolution, where she endured interrogations, torture, and a forced marriage. She later immigrated to Canada in 1991 with her husband and their family. Today, she lives near Toronto and continues to write, lecture, and advocate for human rights, freedom of speech, and remembrance of political prisoners. Her work has been translated into more than 25 languages, and she has received global recognition for her courage and her commitment to sharing her story as a witness to oppression. In 2010, she published another book called After Tehran, A Life Reclaimed. Her work has earned international recognition, including the Human Dignity Award, December 2007, and the Maurice Abraham Human Rights Award, presented by the UN Watch in Geneva, Switzerland. Allow me to welcome our dear guest tonight, Professor Marina Nemat. Good evening, Marina.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rasha. Thank you for having me.
Actually, thank you so much for allowing me to have this interview and for the approval. We have been talking about this interview, if you remember, since I wrote this interview in the newspaper, and it was the first time to interview you. That was in 2016. So I've been haunting you for 9 years.
Yeah, it's been busy. It's been very busy, a lot of ups and downs. So I apologize for the delay, but I'm back at the helm.
It's worth the hunt.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Let me start with the beginning. Let me start with Marina, the 16-year-old girl that grew up in Tehran. Can you tell us about your childhood in Tehran before the revolution? What did life at that time look like for you as a young girl?
Well, it was very different before the revolution in 1979. I am a Christian. I was born in a Christian family. And as you know, I'm sure Christians are a minority in Iran. And but I never really felt different. I mean, I went to a Zoroastrian high school for girls, and we had girls of all religions. There were Muslims, there were Zoroastrians, there were Christians, there were Jewish girls, there were Baha'i. And to be very honest with you, we all got along. I never felt discriminated against because I was a Christian. Maybe we had 3 or 4 Christians in our school, and it was a big school, but it was not an issue at all. My father taught ballroom dancing in Tehran, and my mother was a hairdresser. We're a middle-class family. We lived downtown on top of a furniture store and a restaurant. And I went to school. I was a good student. I was happy. I had lots of friends. And we had a cottage by the Caspian Sea, and I spent my summers there. Very modest, but it was fun. And I wanted to become a medical doctor. And it was quite normal for a girl to want to become a lawyer, to want to become a doctor, to want to become an engineer. I mean, girls were being educated in Iran the same way as boys. And in my life, I couldn't see being a woman stop me from doing what I wanted to do in any shape or form. We wore what we wanted. If a woman wanted to cover up, they could. And I didn't, and most of my friends didn't. So we did not wear the hijab. We did not cover up. And in the summer, I would be wearing a bikini on the beach, and that was not an issue at all. Girls, boys, all together. And we just lived, I'm not saying a carefree life. I mean, there are always cares in life, but it was all in all, it was good. And then the revolution happened. And especially because I was not political at all. I was 13 when it happened. I had to learn a lot about what was going on in my country very fast.
So how did your upbringing as a Christian faith or your Christian faith shape the way you responded to the political changes that suddenly happened around you?
Well, my family, we were Christian, but my parents were not exactly religious. So, but I guess it affects you. I mean, the fact that when the revolution happened and Ayatollah Khomeini became the leader of the revolution, from the very beginning, he said that he wanted Iran to become an Islamic republic. And for those of us who were not Muslim, everyone who wasn't Muslim, not just Christians, there was this question hanging. What does that mean? If you're not a Muslim and the country is an Islamic republic, how do we fit in? Because Christian or Jew or Baha'i or Zoroastrian, I mean, Zoroastrianism is the original religion of Persia. So everybody was saying, well, how is this going to work? I mean, we have lived in this country for thousands, hundreds of years, tens of years. We are Iranians. So how is this going to affect us? And nobody had the answer to that because the laws to this Islamic Republic had not been written yet. So basically, we had to take the words of the Ayatollah and trust him and believe him. And I think religious minorities in general had difficulty doing that. So this definitely created some sort of suspicion when it came to religious minorities. Can we trust Khomeini to not discriminate against us once he is in power? So that was a big question hanging.
So before going into the book, I have one question in mind. So if you close your eyes now and think of Tehran in the 1970s, what's the first image that comes up to your mind?
Beautiful wide streets with a lot of old trees, maple trees, at least on my street, and people just going about shopping, having a good time without being afraid of being attacked because of what they were wearing, without fear of being attacked or because some of your hair was showing, when it comes to women. That's the image that I see from Tehran. A relatively speaking, happy, relatively speaking, for an average person who was not political, because I was not political, feeling safe. I always felt safe in Tehran.
Beautiful word. By the way, this is the Iran that I always wanted to visit. I'm dreaming of visiting Isfahan, but I think nowadays, no way.
Yeah, Isfahan is beautiful, but I do not recommend you visit anytime soon.
I wrote a book about that, but maybe one day.
Maybe one day. Isfahan is beautiful.
Nisf Jihan, huh? The half of Isfahan.
Absolutely, Nesbijan. Maybe more.
I did my homework.
You did. Yeah.
So going to the part of the prison, January 15, 1982. You will go back with me to this part and describe that date. Would that date be ever erased from your memory? And what do you remember about this particular date?
I try to push the date back from out of my head because it is when my life changed in a very traumatic way. And even like now, after all these years that I've been speaking about it, I've been writing about it, still when I talk about it, my hands get cold and my heart rate goes up. Like even now, it still happens. I had life was stressful, like even before I was arrested, because many of my friends had been already arrested. And I was not going to school anymore, even though I was supposed to. This was in January, and I was supposed to be in school, but I wasn't because I was so stressed out that I cried and cried. When September came and it was time to go to school, I cried and I told my mother I was not going to school because I couldn't tolerate it anymore, because I was outspoken. And the new regime, when it came into power in school, they started brainwashing us. They replaced all of our teachers with fanatic young women who were there to serve the revolution and nobody else. And when they said something that I disagreed with, I had difficulty remaining silent. And I had already gotten into a lot of trouble with the new teachers, the new principal. They all hated me. They saw me as a troublemaker.
Rebels.
And I knew it. But it was true. But, I wasn't there to make trouble because before the revolution, I was not like that at all. I was a good student. I never talked back to anybody. But simply because they had taken away the subjects. Basically, we were not studying math and sciences anymore. We were just studying revolution propaganda constantly. So it was upsetting. And I said to my mother, I'm not learning anything in school. I'm not going. My mother saw how upset I was. And she said, okay, fine. Take a year off. You just stay home for a year, regroup, and then we'll see what happens. So I was stressed, and I had already heard from my friends because I talked to them on the phone every day to see what was going on in school. And I had already heard that some people had been arrested. So basically, every single day was like, am I going to get arrested today or is it going to be tomorrow? And there was no place to run because the borders had been closed. Now, some people managed to get out, but it was very expensive. You had to pay human smugglers, and my family couldn't do that. So we just sat down and waited, and they finally came. They came to arrest me. It was 9, 10 o'clock at night. I was about to go to bed. I just went to take a bath, and I heard the doorbell. And the moment I heard it, I immediately knew nobody comes to our house at 10 p.m.
Really?
I mean,
You expect?
I did. And I immediately knew. And I think I just entered a state of shock. Like people say, were you afraid? To be honest, I think I'm more afraid now than I was then because it was a state of shock. It was, I couldn't feel anything. I was just functioning, but without being able to feeling any emotions. My mom and dad started crying when the Revolutionary Guard came into the house with their guns and everything. I was just looking at them and just quite relaxed, actually. Yeah, okay. They're here to take me. And they asked me about my books, because I had a big bookcase full of books. So they said, what are the books were mostly Western novels. So then they put me in a car and they took me to Evin prison.
So I'm sure you still have a memory of Evin prison, which is unfortunately found in many other countries like Alcatraz in USA, Abu Ghraib in Iraq, Sidnaya recently in Syria.
Yeah.
So what was your worst nightmare there?
I had blankness in my head. Like my mind was blank. I had heard about Evin prison, of course, everybody had. And there were horror stories about what they would do to you. But again, I think because I was just 16, or maybe it happens to older people too, I think our mind creates a safety zone and doesn't allow panic to set in. So I just was in the moment. I couldn't think beyond it. I couldn't think what's going to happen when we get there. My mind just had completely stopped functioning in its normal shape and form. It was, I think, protecting me. So when we arrived at the gates of the prison, I looked at it and it was just tall walls, very tall walls with barbed wire on top and spotlights and guards. And, so the gates opened but the moment the gates opened, they blindfolded me. So I couldn't even see anything. And that is even scarier because when you cannot see where you're going, but my mind, I guess, has this ability to just stop.
But what was the accusation? Did they accuse people or just you take them, put them?
Yes, anti-revolutionary. Blank statement, the blanket statement.
A great statement.
Against God, against Islamic Republic, an enemy of Islam. Based on what? Based not on much, but anything could land you in that situation of being accused of being the word was anti-revolutionary, ضد انقلاب. So they would get you, they would put you in the car, they would drive you to Evin prison. What's your accusation? ضد انقلاب, anti-revolutionary.
Well, actually, when I was reading the book, I couldn't put it down until I finished it. It was a recommendation from my mother, by the way. She told me, you must read this book, and she's watching us, I think. So I was just saying, oh my God, how courage this lady is, how much faith and courage she had, and the way they torture people, it's unbelievable. I mean, it was, for me, unbelievable. So looking back, what do you think that helped emotionally survive, or helped you emotionally survive Evin prison when so many others couldn't do? I mean, you survived, but a lot of people couldn't do that. What helped you emotionally?
I really think, as I told you, I think this is something that I have been gifted with, that it's not courage. I wouldn't describe it as courage. I would describe it as being unplugged. I just unplug. So you can put me in a very difficult situation and my emotions immediately disappear. So I didn't feel fear. If you cannot feel fear, well, you don't. It's just pretty simple. You know, I think there is a place beyond fear. I think there's a threshold that some people cross it more easily than others. And I think for me, I was able to step beyond the border of fear. So this is not about being brave. This is just about survival. This is about dealing with what is going on right now and not thinking a whole lot about it. I mean, there were people there, other people my age, a lot of other people my age, other girls who were acting terrified. And I just couldn't feel that fear. It just wasn't there. And later, I guess, as I talked to healthcare professionals, they said this is a state of shock. So some people respond differently, but a lot of people, when they enter a state of shock, they're just not afraid. It is a survival mechanism. So again, I don't see it like courage is such a big word. And it when I hear the word courage, I think it means you actually understand what's going on and you decide not to be afraid. The fact is, I did not understand what was going on, and I did not decide not to be afraid. It just happened.
But you took professional treatment and you went to a therapist or something after?
Yes, later. Yes,
That was
many
in
years
Tehran or in
later.
Canada?
No, in
In Canada?
Canada. Oh, no, not in Tehran. You could not talk about Evin with anybody. I mean, if a therapist sat down and you started talking about Evin, they probably run in the opposite direction because it was forbidden to talk about it. Nobody talked about it. It was not some casual conversation that you could have with somebody.
This is unbelievable, but
It's
so
the way it is.
what's the most touching story that you heard or lived or you saw inside the prison? I mean, was it Sarah, Seema, Sears,
It
Rana?
was my friends. It was my friends.
Which
It
one of them?
was
You wrote
all
about
of them. All of them. I mean, in prison, because we had nothing. I mean, we didn't even own our own lives.
Mhm.
It was, you could be called any moment on the loudspeaker and be taken for execution, torture, rape, you name it. You just didn't know. They could call you at any given moment, and you had absolutely no say in what was going to happen to you. We were always hungry. There wasn't enough food. The hygiene situation was a nightmare. Going to the bathroom a lot of times was difficult because there was a limited number of bathrooms and there were so many of us. The prison was very overcrowded. So in the public block, there was always a lineup for the bathroom. And yeah, we were always hungry. Most of us were very young. I would say 90% under the age of 20. And yeah, terrifying. So every night there were sound of guns and people were being executed and just difficult situation. And when I think you are walking inside evil, human kindness shines more than when everything is normal. Because when things are normal, there are distractions and people are nice, okay. But when you are in absolute darkness, the smallest light brightens up everything. So with my friends, we were young, so, when we knew each other's birthday, and we always remembered. So for days leading to someone's birthday, we would save some of our food ration. And as I told you, we were hungry. So the food was very limited. So we would save some flatbread and some dates for days. Just a little bit, put it aside. And then when it was someone's birthday, with the bread and the dates, we would make a cake, so-called cake, a little something that looked like a cake, kind of. And we would pretend to have a candle, which we didn't have, but we pretended. And then we very quietly, because we didn't want the guards to hear us, happiness was not allowed, we sang happy birthday, and we encouraged the person whose birthday it was that next year, when it's your birthday, you're going to be home. Remember that. You are going to be home. And I think it was that hope that my friends diligently guarded. Like looking back, I understand these things. When I was living it, I didn't understand how important this was. But that support of my very young friends who were in the same boat, we were all in the same boat, it was what sustained us. And I think those of us who survived managed to learn how to hang on to that hope and not let the darkness take over. And it was a battle. I mean, every day there was just so much darkness. You were always pushing against it. But yeah, some of us survived. And we are still in touch, a few of us, barely, because a few of them are still in Iran. So I'm careful. But yeah, and it's amazing that the friends that I'm still in touch with from Evin, they are amazing human beings. They are the best people I have ever known in my life because they have walked through darkness and came out of the other side without allowing it to turn them into angry, mean, nasty human beings. They are still kind and generous. And that's just amazing.
I was saving this question for last, by the way. I was going to ask you if you are still in touch with anybody of those people there. And so did they all leave Iran, or some of them are still there?
No, actually, most of them, not all of them, but most of them are still in. And
Don't think
yeah,
that.
it took me a while to find them, but I haven't found everybody. I have reason to believe that, even the ones I haven't found, there are three people that I really wanted to find and I haven't been able to.
How
But
did,
I have reason.
how did you find them?
Basically on Facebook.
Ah, okay. But I think it's still the same in Iran. I think nothing, I mean, not a lot of change. I mean.
Not a lot of, at least, not a lot of fundamental change.
Mhm.
In the days that I was in prison, the dictatorship was new.
Mhm.
But today it's established. It makes a difference in how it operates, but the bottom line is that it is a dictatorship, that it is brutal, and that as a woman, you have very little to stand on.
So you were 16 at that time. Do you think being so young influenced the way you processed the trauma that happened to you? I mean, if you were 40, if you were a mother at that time, do you think you would respond differently to this story, this sad story?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think because I was 16 and so young, I was flexible in ways. When you like in a storm, if there is a storm, the young blades of grass that can bend all the way, they bend, but they don't break. But an old tree in a storm, it would break. So I really think that my being young and flexible and not full of prejudice and opinions and, all of that. It really helped me. I think if I had been arrested when I was older, I would have been full of opinions and no, I know this and I know that, and anger and hate and, all of that. But that was not the case. And I think that it is with young people. Young people are so resilient. And I naturally, as we get older, we lose that resiliency. So I really think being young really helped us.
Can you describe a moment in the prison when you felt that hope, when you felt hope, even in the darkest time, and a moment that you completely lose hope or lost hope?
As I, when I found hope was with my friends, when things were really bad, when someone was called for interrogation and was beaten and threatened and sent back, we surrounded that person, we hugged that person, we talked to that person, we sang songs together, we gave hope to each other. So those were the moments of hope. And but there, I mean, anytime you would be called for interrogation, it was darkness. It was everything else disappeared because they called it interrogation. On the loudspeaker, they would say your name and they would say, come for interrogation. But interrogation could mean anything. Interrogation could mean execution. Interrogation usually meant torture. Interrogation could mean anything. You just didn't know what was going to happen to you. So those were the moments that were the darkest. The fact that you just didn't know. And the fact that they could do whatever they wanted to and there was no accountability.
During my long research about Iran, because I was really fascinated about the place, so that's why I wanted to write about. What I understood that there is two kind of marriages: a permanent one, which is called nikah, and a short one, or let's say a temporary one, which is called siriye, or I don't know
We
what.
call it sire.
Yeah, siriye. Okay.
Yeah.
Or muta, or we call it here.
Sure.
Are those kind of marriages still applying in Iran? They still do the
Yes,
same?
absolutely. They
Really?
are, yes, absolutely. They are a part of the legal system because the legal system in Iran is very religion based, based on traditions, on religion. And a girl as young as 9 can be married off in a temporary marriage to a man, whatever old, he can be, 70 for all we know. And the woman or the girl in this marriage, temporary marriage, has no rights. So if there is a child, for example, the man is not responsible to provide for that child. It's the mother's problem. And the man is not obligated. I mean, okay, when it takes place, in Iran, there are a lot of poor families, and anywhere there are a lot of poor families. And many of these poor families have daughters, they have girls. So it has become a way for some of these very poor families to basically sell their girls to temporary marriage. So the man who wants to temporarily marry the girl pays a sum of money, not to the girl herself because she could be 10, but to the family. So this becomes a way for the family. I don't really blame the families for this because a lot of times they would not survive if they didn't. I blame the society in general as a whole and the government for allowing this to have to take place. That is where the problem lies. Why should a poor family be so desperate to sell their daughter like this? That is the question I ask. But then the girl has nothing, and the man can discard the girl as soon as that temporary time, whatever, it can be 24 hours, it can be 48 hours, it could be 6 months, anything. Basically, these girls, after that, they are usually pushed into prostitution or they commit suicide. A lot of times we don't even know what happens to them. So a lot of terrible things happen around this situation. And again, the man has no responsibility. After that time, let's say 6 months, whatever it is over, the man just walks away.
Well, I have to add up another question. I mean, I always ask myself, where is the human rights organizations and blah, 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 and everything from what's happening in Iran and Afghanistan? I really just watch that and say, oh my God, where are those people? I mean, so sad.
It is sad. You know what, though? I have always believed that, yes, human rights organizations are very important. I mean, I have worked with many of them. And yes, getting these stories highlighted. I mean, I know that there are many human rights organizations who have very consistently been talking about the issues in Iran, in Afghanistan, you name it. I see their emails basically every day, and I see them on Facebook every day. And that's very valuable. It is important. It is important to keep it in the news. It is important to make sure people are aware. But there are some other situations that are matter as well. I believe that for a country to change, like really change for the better, it needs to change from within,
Right,
from
yeah.
inside,
Right.
because we have seen it happen. You know, do you remember George W. Bush going into Iraq? Oh, we are going to give them democracy. Yeah.
That's always the
Funny.
case, yeah.
That's a good one. We cannot and we should not that we cannot, but that too, but we should not, we must never give democracy because it is not something that can be given. It's not a cup of tea. You can give a cup of tea, but we cannot give democracy. Democracy is a state of mind. It's something that a people need to arrive at, which is very complicated, I suppose. And support matters. Support from the outside matters, but it is the people. I mean, look at what's going on in the United States right now. United States had democracy, and right now it's just so shaky, so fragile. I think it's basically dead, but that's just me. And when you look at the support that the people of the United States, not all of them, but more than half of them, have given those who very visibly have no respect for democracy, have no respect for human decency, have no respect for women, have no respect for freedom of speech, have no respect for education and educators. What does this tell you? It tells you that the country is on a trajectory to go toward maybe even a terrible dictatorship. That's definitely possible. Now, the opposite of it is also true. I think like in a country like Iran that has been in a dictatorship for many years, the conditions must become right for the people to have the opportunity to say, we had enough of that. Now we want something different. Of course, it's difficult when you live in a country like Iran, because if you say anything against the government, you're going to end up in Evin or worse. So, but dictatorships fall, right? We know that dictatorships fall. So Iran, I'm sure, will change when, and I hope it will change for the better because it's very difficult to get worse, possible, but very difficult to get worse. So I just hope that the young people in Iran look around them one day and decide to make a change. Of course, it's difficult. People have been dying for trying to do it for so many years, but history is our witness. It happens all the time.
Well, I think there's a friend of you, somebody called Ranjini George.
Ah, Ranjini, yes.
It's just saying, wonderful to be there. Lovely to hear from you. You speak Marina.
Yes, Ranjini is a good friend. She also teaches at U of T, at the School of Continuing Studies where I teach.
Okay, so going to the another question. You've spoken about being forced to marriage with Ali. You were a prisoner. After all these years and after he's gone now and he's been whatever, assassinated or whatever, how do you now reflect on him as a person? I mean, do you still see him as an oppressor, or maybe now you can see him as someone who was unwillingly trapped into the system, like many others?
I definitely believe that he was trapped. Now, the issue was that when I was a prisoner and he was my interrogator, to me, in that situation, he was definitely the oppressor. No more, no less. And I was terrified of him. Let me be very clear. I was 16 and he had the power of life and death and more over me. And I could see it. So this man could do whatever he wanted with me, and not a leaf would fall off a tree. So, okay. And as a 16-year-old, I had hopes and dreams for my life. Like when I was arrested, I had all these dreams and I had a boyfriend. And that was where I wanted to be. That was what I wanted to do. And he stood in the way. He basically said, "You become my wife, and there's no other way out. If you don't, I will arrest your family." Well, I mean, this is not a negotiation, is it? This is basically like a person who is the god of your world and can decide whatever he wants to do with you and your family. So I was like, okay, whatever you want. It was after the marriage that when I met his family, that my perspective shifted a bit. I was still scared of him, very much terrified. But his family were not scary at all. They were much nicer than my parents. His mom was the most delightful woman I have ever met in my life. And now that I'm 60 years old and I have quite a bit of gray hair, I have met a lot of women. And she was by far, there wasn't a molecule of prejudice in this woman. I was a prisoner.
Do you know if she's still alive?
No.
You have nothing
No, she's dead. No, she's dead. No, she died quite a long time ago. She was the kindest. Even though I was a prisoner, she never said a demeaning, a humiliating word to me. She was always kind and generous and making sure I got enough food, making sure I was happy, making sure I was taken care of, making sure I was never unhappy with anything that was going on in the house. She didn't like for me to help her with housework, but because I told her, listen, I don't know how to cook. So let's just be clear, I have never cooked. So then she took me under her wings and she made sure I was in the kitchen just so that she could teach me how to do this, how to do that, how to, she said, you need to learn these things. She was very kind. And Ali's sister, she was also like her mother. She was just this lovely. She was a little suspicious of me, I can tell. Like from the beginning, she was, a little on edge around me and a little, why did he choose you? Like, what are you doing in this
Did you
house?
know
And
that
they
you
would,
were, I'm sorry, did she know that you were Christian?
yeah. Yeah, well, they said I had to convert, and I
Yeah.
did. Yeah, I had to convert from Christianity to Islam. They said that's the only way this is going to work out. And I agreed because I didn't have any other choice here. But they respected that. They respected the fact that I was brought up differently. They had respect for that. So yeah, they were kind, never a mean word, never any. Ali's father was such a decent, like at least my experience of him, he was extremely decent. He was extremely supportive and loving to his family. And he would do anything to make sure that his family were okay and safe. And I really believe that he did everything in his power to help me as well. He got out of his way.
Did you think if Ali lived, your life would unfolded differently?
Absolutely. I mean, very differently. One thing I can say about Ali is that even though we disagreed almost, I'm not going to say on everything, but we disagreed on a lot of things. One thing that we had in common, which was something I didn't like, but it was a fact, it was that he had been tortured too during the time of the Shah. So, like me, he understood what that felt.
That was the one
And
you saw the stripes on his back, and you told him that you've been.
yeah, there was that. There were marks. And then his mother also told me, and she said he doesn't talk about it. And I was shocked because he had never told me. And I said, he hasn't told me. She wasn't surprised about that. But there was this unspoken, I guess, between me and him, there was this unspoken understanding of where we were in the world and the fact that the world was a terrifying place and that we had both faced that situation in which you realize you're nothing and that you have no power to change it. And I think that was what eventually made him very uncomfortable with what was going on in the prison. Because when he joined Evin prison to become an interrogator, he really believed he was serving the revolution, that he was serving his country, he was serving the people. But then there were all these teenage girls who were being tortured and executed. And eventually, I think that really caught up with him. And he started to see that how can this serve Islam? How can this serve this country? How can this serve anybody? This is just not going the way I thought it would go. So that was when he decided to resign. We had already been married, and he said, well, I'm going to resign. We are just going to go live our lives. Forget about this and live our lives. And he was killed.
But why did I, as a woman, feel at one part of the book when you asked to visit his grave, that it was kind of, let me say, I didn't feel it was pity. Was it love or was it pity or what?
It was neither. It was neither love. It was not pity. It was more than anything, I think it was frustration. I was frustrated with everything. I mean, if I had met him at a party, let's say, instead of inside the prison, me being the prisoner, he being the interrogator. Just imagine if I had met Ali at a dinner party at someone's house. Normal circumstances, normal. Like I would be happy, he would be happy, we would have a conversation. I have thought about it. I think I would have liked him. He was extremely smart. He was extremely well read. He was brilliant. I would have liked him. If he had asked me out normally, not in a prison, like acted as a normal person, I would have probably gone out with him.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Because when we talk about interrogators in a prison, it is hard for us to imagine this person who tortures and kills people as his day job. It's hard for us to imagine this person in a normal capacity. It's difficult to separate this person from their job because their job is just so horrific. But if we just imagine for a moment that this person actually has a family, cares about people, he's not really a psychopath, at least I don't think he was. And he feels the same emotions that I do. And even some of our experiences have been similar in life. Suddenly the perspective shifts. It doesn't mean that I agreed with what he did. What he did as his job was wrong. But the thing is, he realized it was wrong. That was the key for me, that he came to me and said, I don't think this is right. This is wrong. I don't want to be a part of it anymore. We are just going to walk away from it.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, we can do that. So that I think was a redemption. For him, there was this moment that it was redemptive. It was He was able to separate himself from that darkness, from that evil. And to me, that mattered. And as a person, I have forgiven him for what he did to me because he forced me in the marriage. He basically raped me over and over, all of that. I forgive. Why? Because he realized it was wrong. And what more can I ask? You cannot change the past. You cannot change what happened. What happened, happened, and it was wrong. Okay, let's be clear. But he said, this is wrong. I'm sorry. We are going to try again. And that, for me, mattered.
You are such a wonderful human being, really.
No,
No, you
I'm just
are.
a human being who has seen evil and I have touched it with my whole being. And I have decided that is really not for me. Why? Because that kind of evil, even for people who serve it, they think it's good. They think it's going to make them rich or happy or, whatever, but it brings nothing but suffering. And I don't like suffering. I like happiness. That's all.
So 2 years, 2 months, and 12 days. When you were released, how did you learn to live freely in Iran under surveillance and censorship and everything? That time that you spent in Iran before leaving, how was that time?
It was horrible. I I got out of prison, all that time in the prison, with me and my friends. We always had this mantra. We always said to each other, listen, you're going to go home and everything will be fine. You're going to go home to your mom, to your dad, to your family, and everything will be okay. You'll be happy again. It will be just like it was before. So I go home. Nothing is like before. Nothing. Because I'm not like before. I'm a completely different person, 100% different. And so are my family. I mean, they expect me to be the girl I was before prison. I mean, they never even said, how are you doing? I mean, what did they do to you in there for 2 years, 2 months, and 12 days? What happened in there? And of course, I wasn't ready to talk about it, but they could have said, well, if you're not ready to talk today, whenever you're ready, we are here for you. Never came.
Were they afraid, or they just
Afraid, just
really?
afraid. They were
Even
scared
your
because
mother?
all of them,
Wow.
every single one, my mom, my
Unbelievable.
dad, just terrified. They were afraid to hear what had happened because if they had acknowledged me and what happened, I guess they were afraid because a mother and father are supposed to protect their children, and they couldn't. Not that they wouldn't, but they couldn't. But there is guilt associated with that. So I think they felt guilty. And guilt brings about fear. So they just decided that maybe if we don't talk about it, it will go away. A lot of people believe that. Let's not talk about it, it goes away. So, that's what happened. They just wanted me to forget it and move forward. And for me, it was just, I tried for so many, 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 many years. I tried because that was what was expected. Forget about it, move on. It never happened. And for so many years, I kept silent. I didn't talk about it until I started having symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder many years later. Basically, when my mother died, that was when I started having symptoms that were just getting worse. And I think I was very angry at my mother because she never asked, she never acknowledged. So when she died, I think all of that just exploded, just came out. And I needed to do something. So I started writing, I started talking to people. Then eventually I spoke with a therapist and, all of that. And, eventually it came out, but it was a long process.
That was my next question. What gave you the courage years later to start up talking and writing your memoirs?
Again, it was encouraged. I had PTSD and I was having severe symptoms. So I was having blackouts. So I would be doing something and then my mind would I would have flashbacks from the prison. And then I would come back to it, like to the moment, and I couldn't remember where I was, like what I had been doing, what happened. Like I had these big, huge memory lapses that were the result of flashbacks. I had psychotic episodes where I would get so angry that I would go in the bathroom, lock the door, and bang my head against the wall because I just couldn't fit in my own skin. And all of this led to the fact that I saw that this is probably the fact that I need to put it all out of me, like all the experiences, the memories, they need to come out. So that's when I started writing them, putting them on the page. I thought if I put them on the page, I will feel better. I didn't. I felt worse. So because the plan was just to write it and then put it in a drawer and forget it. Then I thought, okay, maybe if I share it with like a few friends, it will be better. So I shared it with a few friends and they're like, oh, this is really good. You have to like share it with more people. And then I took courses and, it eventually became a book. And that was when I realized that when a person experiences something so traumatic that is not only a personal trauma, but it is the trauma of a country. Now, my trauma is not just mine, it is the trauma of Iran. The only way to deal with it properly, well, yeah, you do therapy and all of that, medication, maybe whatever works, but you need more than that. You need to bear witness. The important thing is to stand up and to say out loud for the world to hear what happened. Because that's a decent thing to do, because that is the right thing to do. Because when we witness something unjust, something murderous, something evil happen, if we walk away, it means that we are approving of that evil. In order to not approve of the evil, we need to stand up to it. And this standing up involves telling the truth. There is no other way. There is no other way. Because if I had not done that, I would have probably jumped off a bridge or something. When you witness something like that, you can't live with yourself anymore. Because all of that just stays in you. And you need to put it out in the open so that the world knows, so that the world realizes. And then you can say, I did my duty. And that's important.
So writing the memoirs wasn't only reopening wounds, it was sort of healing for you, right?
There is no healing. Let's be clear on that. I will never, ever heal, ever. It is a management system. I'm managing it. Heal, I think, is a betrayal of anyone who's ever had extreme trauma. Extreme trauma is not a cold that we can heal from. Extreme trauma is a forever wound that sometimes bleeds. 20 years later, 30 years later, 50 years later, it bleeds. We need to respect it. Very important. The fact that the trauma survivor needs to understand that it wasn't my fault what happened. That's very important. Because a lot of times the victims blame themselves. I blamed myself for everything, I sometimes still do. But at the end of the day, I know it wasn't my fault what happened. So acknowledgement, you need to acknowledge it, you need to respect it, you need to understand it. How can you understand it? By analyzing it. Now, whether you do it, on page or you do it just talking to a therapist, whatever works, And all of this would lead to management. You're capable to manage it. And I find as I get older, I realize more and more that, for so many years, I try to please people. When I came out of the prison, I tried to please my family by not talking about it, by being silent, by being normal. And especially as I'm getting older, I realize that this is really something that plagues all survivors of trauma, but especially women, because we are always supposed to please others. When right now, I'm 60 years old now, I don't at all feel that I'm here to please anybody.
That's all of us. Don't worry.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
So what I understand is that your husband, you met in Iran and then you traveled to Canada. So I guess he has a background of the story. But what about your sons? They weren't there. And how do they understand this now, or how do they react to it?
I don't think they understand. Let me be clear.
You have two sons,
No,
right?
no, but they know definitely, and I have been very outspoken, so they have definitely heard it. I think at the end of the day, I think you would know because you're a mother. Um, a mother is a mother. It doesn't matter if your mother is the president of the country, if the mother is the most famous actress in the world, if the mother is like me, an ex-political prisoner, if the mother is whatever, mom is always mom. Mom is the one that we go to when we are in trouble. Mom is the one who helps out when things are wrong. Mom is the one that, especially when the kids are growing up. I published the book when the kids were, well, my older son was on his way to university, but the younger one was old. Mom is the one who puts food on the table. Mom is the one who takes care of you when you're sick. So it doesn't matter who that mom is. It doesn't matter how the world sees that mom. It matters what mom is to you. And I think for me, it's very important to be the mom that beyond anything is a safe place for my children. My experiences aside, because yes, they are part of who I am, but they're only a part of who I am. They're not all of who I am. And being a mother really matters to me. I take it very seriously. So yeah, I think with children, your children always see you differently than the world does, simply because you're their mother.
Very nice answer. I like that so much. Speaking of mothers, my mom is watching and she commented on the page and she said, "This is one of the most truthful and strong novels I've ever read or memoir."
That's very kind. Please
That's in
give
her
my
mind.
warmest regards to your mom.
Thank you so much.
She has a lovely daughter, and I'm sure she is a lovely, lovely person.
She is. Thank you so much. So you said in your book, I closed my eyes and wondered if heaven had a lost and found. I had left many things behind. What did you leave behind? I wondered.
Oh, I have left a lot of things behind. I have left little bits and pieces. A lot of them are things. There are things that I do miss, but they're little things. But more than that, I think the biggest thing that I have left behind that I really miss is my cottage on the Caspian Sea.
Oh,
That cottage was a place of peace, joy, and happiness. And I miss it. It doesn't exist anymore. I know that we sold it and then the land was divided and many houses were built there. So it doesn't exist. But in my dreams, in my thoughts, I guess heaven would, if it exists, it would it would have a different shape for me than it does for you, for any person. And for me, if there is a heaven, and if we ever end up somewhere like that, mine will look like my cottage at the Caspian.
I would go with you in that place. I would love
Oh,
to
it's nice.
by the sea.
It's nice. It was nice, not anymore, but it was nice.
So you also said, now that I was lying safely in my bed, it had become much easier to be brave. So how many other ladies in that place, in that dark place, tried to be as brave as you are or stand up for their rights? Did any of them survive? And you already answered the part of you're still in contact with some of them, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And one of them actually came to Canada to see me. We had this very long and emotional conversation
Traveled
about.
to Canada, and she went back.
She went back to Iran, yeah.
Did they allow her to do this?
Yeah. If as long as you behave yourself. I mean, after prison, she never said anything against the government or anything, you know. So yeah, she came to Canada as a tourist. She met with me and we sat down and we talked. And yeah, there were a lot of things that I really wanted her perspective on because there were certain things I knew, there were certain things I didn't about stuff that happened. And I just wanted to know her perspective. And it was valuable to me to know. And then she said something before she left. She said, Marina, you have a voice. I don't. Because she lives in Iran. So she couldn't speak up. She couldn't write a book. She couldn't do anything about our friends who died in prison. She said, you have a voice. Promise me you will always use it because I can't. So you have to do it. It is your responsibility. And we had a very, very dear mutual friend named Shahnush Behzadi. Shahnush was a very good friend of mine, very dear. I met her when I was in the 3rd grade. Sorry, the 4th grade. And she was the kindest, most generous girl I have ever met. And she was executed before I was arrested even. She was 15. She was arrested before me. And then this mutual friend, the girl who came to Canada, the woman who came to Canada to see me, that friend, she was also Shahnush's friend. And she was arrested. And then after that, I was arrested. So this friend, my friend who came to see me, she knew more about what happened to Shahnush. Because by the time I was arrested, Shahnush was dead. So she knew more about what happened. And she told me what happened. And I was, of course, shocked with how bizarre this whole thing was. But I promised my friend that I will always bring up Shahnush's name at every opportunity because we don't even know where Shahnush is buried.
Oh.
You know, I'm 60 and Shahnush is still 15, buried in a mass grave in somewhere in Iran. We don't even know where. And she was the kindest, gentlest, nicest soul. Like there wasn't a bad bone in her body ever. This girl didn't know how to be mean, how to be nasty to anybody. And, you know, I cannot even say rest in peace because she cannot rest in peace. How can you rest in peace? There's no such thing.
You're Muslim?
Yes. No. She was Zoroastrian. She was Zoroastrian. But funny enough, they accused her of being an anti-revolutionary, of course, and a member of a Marxist Islamist political group. She wasn't even Muslim.
Are you kidding?
Like it was hilarious to me when they said that. I was like, I knew this girl. I grew up with her. I knew her inside out. She was not Muslim. She was probably anti-revolutionary. I mean, we all hated the revolution, but I was definitely much more anti-revolutionary than she ever was. And she was dead. They executed her at 15? What for?
They are really terrorists, actually. Nothing else to say, but
It's
so
I just don't know.
So another thing that you said in the book was that you have to know that death is only a step you have to take to reach the other world and live only in a different way. Was this your opinion when you were being imprisoned or after being released?
I think I have, you know, I am, I can't, I'm not Okay. I don't like organized religion. So, any religion. And I grew up, I went to church. I have gone to church a lot. But the reason why I went to church always was not because I really like organized religion. It's because I just find it is a community. It's a place to get to meet people, to know people, to help people. If you want to work with charity, charitable organizations through the church, it was always a possibility. And I do like that. I do believe in God. I am not sure if there is anything after this life. Because to me, faith is a step before knowledge. Knowledge means something we know. How can anyone who's alive know what goes on after death? Because we haven't been dead, and nobody who's been dead can come back and tell us. But one thing I have always believed in is that there must be a God. There must be something because the world is just so complicated. It's so beautiful. It is so extraordinary. I cannot see it being an accident. I just have difficulty with that.
This was your opinion forever, or you just have this
No,
opinion now?
no, I think it was so I just think I can articulate it better now than I ever did before. I mean, heaven, what does that even mean? Like, I remember probably when I was how old? This was before I was arrested. I was 15. I was taking some catechism at the church, and I always asked this from the priest, like, what is heaven? How can anybody tell us what it looks like? It's just impossible. I'm not saying it's not there, but it's impossible to describe. So one thing I can say for sure, and it was the same when I was young, is that it's so important to say, I don't know.
Mm.
It doesn't matter if you're Muslim or Christian or Baha'i or Zoroastrian or Jewish or whatever. I think when it comes to matters of after death, God, that sort of thing, it's so important to say, I don't know, but this is what I think it is, and this is what I believe in. So I certainly hope there is some sort of a heaven because, again, I have lost a lot of things and I hope to find them.
So let's go to your second book. Your second book after Tehran. I guess it wasn't translated to Arabic yet, but I guess we all want to hear about it.
Mm.
Many people didn't read it, but I can imagine what's written inside. So why did you decide to go for part two, and pushed you to
It was
write on
honestly
it?
when Prisoner of Tehran was published, I received a lot of emails with a lot of questions about what happened after. So I just decided to write it, to describe, for example, my relationship with my mom and dad after more than what I had said in Prisoner of Tehran, and a lot of stuff about the consequences of writing Prisoner of Tehran. Like I received death threats and people called me liar, traitor, whore, you name it. And I needed to address those. So to talk about the consequences of writing Prisoner of Tehran, because there were a lot of consequences in my family, in the community, in Iran, outside the world. It made a lot of people angry, I suppose. So I had to talk about that.
So how did the readers react to it after it was published?
It was very good. I think Prisoner of Tehran created a lot of anger in a lot of people, those who, for whatever reason, disagreed with me politically, religiously, ideologically. Um, a lot of people, said, oh, nobody was ever tortured in Iran or in Evin prison, or, teenagers are not executed, or this is not the way it happened, and, all of that. But everybody has the right to their own opinion and their own memories and sharing it with the world. But when the second one was published, I think all of that negativity, it just fizzled out. I mean, I think people realize that I'm not going away and I'm standing firm on what I have written in my books, and I'm here to support all of it. So it actually, I think it calmed down the waters a lot.
That's good. So I have an exclusive. So from The Prisoner of Tehran, you pointed out that what I read is that your grandparents they both immigrated from Russia, and they married Persian men. So you have a Russian, background too, not only Iranian or Persian. So you told me during our last chat that your grandmother they run what's called a boarding house, and that you decided to write about this in a new book that's coming out in summer 2026 in Canada. And you said it will be called, can I say the title?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mistress of the Persian Boarding House. Very interesting title. And I think this will take your career to another place as a fiction writer, maybe, or a different kind of writer. So let me say, please, would you tell the audience or people hearing us, what's a boarding house, and from where did you get the information, the true information about this book?
Well, my grandmother, as you said, she escaped the 1917 Russian Revolution. Her name was Zina, and she escaped, and she married actually an Iranian man who was living in Russia, and he was a jeweler. So he worked in a jewelry store. He was an artist. He designed and created jewelry. And she married him. And when the revolution happened, they escaped together. They came to Iran. And when they arrived in Tehran, just a few weeks after, I'm not exactly sure, but not that long, maybe 8, 10, 12 weeks after they arrived, her husband, whose name was Isa was killed by thieves. So he was murdered. And they had brought some jewels to Iran with them from Russia. The jewels, most of them were stolen. Zina was alone. Zina didn't know anybody in Iran. It was just Isa. And when he was dead, she was basically alone. She didn't have anybody. She didn't know anybody. She didn't speak Farsi. And she had a daughter at the time, and she was pregnant with my father. So there was a boarding house at the time in Tehran where Zina was staying there. A boarding house is kind of like bread and breakfast, like a small hotel, like usually a big house with like 7, 8, 10 rooms, and people can go stay there, pay, and food is usually provided. And so Zina was staying there, and the owner of this boarding house, whose name was Irina, who was also Russian. She was a Jewish Russian, and she had been living in Iran as well. She took Zina under her wing, and eventually she left Zina the boarding house. And this boarding house was actually a place where a lot of Russian women who had lost everything in the Russian Revolution and had nowhere to go. They had no money. They didn't know anybody. They stayed there. And at the beginning, Irina and then Zina, they took care of these women who had nowhere to go. And they created a community of women who helped each other and built a life, and actually succeeded. They did quite well. So it is a story of survival in a country that was usually quite hostile to them, didn't like them very much, but they survived, and they did actually very well.
That would be a very interesting novel. I'm looking up to really from now. So you have to send
I
me a signed
certainly,
copy.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. And I think it's about revolution and social and political change. And I think in the world today, it is so important to know history and to learn from it.
I do believe that history is written in the same way, and it just keeps repeating itself, but different eras. So if you read history good, you probably can predict what's going to happen. Same with the revolutions everywhere and the Arab Spring and everything.
Yes, the Arab Spring. I definitely remember all of that unfolding and, people asking me about it. And I always said, I certainly hope that it leads somewhere really, really good. But there are so many obstacles and there are so many forces that are always hiding and trying to take advantage of movements that have the best of intentions, but then they could get hijacked.
It was more of an autumn than a spring, actually. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I think the same thing with the Iranian Revolution. I mean, you say, but the Iranian Revolution was supposed to make things better. It didn't, made it worse.
I don't think it was ever made to make things better. It was a
It
plan.
promised,
The other one.
the Ayatollah promised the people of Iran
They all
political
promised.
freedoms. Yeah, that's the thing. They all promised. Same thing with the Russian Revolution. A lot of promises were made. They were all shoved under the dirt. Right now, President Trump in the US is making a lot of promises to, I don't know, make everything America great again. I
Yes,
mean,
that's right.
I
Neat
kind of
guy.
doubt that's going to happen. But,
One
you
of a
know,
kind.
yeah, exactly. So I think this is just the way, and people kind of forget, they think their country, their political or economical situation is unique. It's not. Nothing in history is unique. It just kind of repeats itself. The details they change,
I agree fully.
but the patterns they
Different people.
remain. Yeah, we are human after all of us, we are human, no matter what color, what race, what religion, what sexual orientation. At the end of the day, we are people.
Have you ever read anything for fellow Iranian writers or Persian writers? Like maybe there is a very famous novel. It's great. No one. It's called The Stoning of Soraya, and
Yeah, yeah,
reading Lolita in Tehran is such an
yeah,
interesting book. You have
absolutely,
read both.
absolutely. Yes, I read a lot. So I have read a lot of stuff, but I also read a lot of stuff in Farsi that has not been translated. I actually just recently read one that I hope it will be translated into English. I cannot unfortunately say much about it. I cannot even say the name of the writer. I cannot say much because the writer is in Iran and he could get in trouble. But it is one of the most amazing books I have ever read, and they asked me from Iran, they asked me to read it and give them my opinion. And I really hope that one day, because there is great literature being created in Iran, being written, and a lot of it cannot be published in Iran. But I hope that it will be translated because these are the books that really tell us about the suffering of the people of Iran. And when and if that book is published, I will certainly post about it and I will let the world know that this is a young Iranian writer. And I really hope that the world will read him.
I think you should
And
get an introduction for it. That would be very nice.
oh, that would be, yeah, I would, I can certainly do that. I love that book. And I think he will, if given the opportunity, he will become one of the greatest voices of Persian literature.
I'm anxious. So,
I wish I could share the name, but I can't.
after everything you've lived, what does the word freedom means to you now? In a very
Oh,
big.
freedom. I think freedom is rather elusive, at least in this day and age and in the foreseeable future. I don't think anyone can claim that they are really, really free. I mean, even if we live in a democracy, we are influenced by so much, by various forms of what I can only describe as propaganda, fake news, that sort of thing. Social media has a huge presence in everyone's life.
Unbelievable, yeah.
And unfortunately, there's so much fake news, just bad information out there. And we are all influenced by it. And as long as this is the case, I don't think anybody can claim that they are free, because how can we be free when we cannot even tell what's true, what's not? That's a problem. So for me, freedom now exists only on personal level. Like on a personal level, I try to be free in the sense of not to be too influenced by what I see in the news and what I see in social media, what I see is going on in the world, to have my own private sense of right and wrong and the kind of life I want to live, regardless of what the world thinks about it.
If you speak to a 16-year-old Marina now in Evin prison, what would you say? What would you tell her?
A part of me probably would say run.
That's what we're going to all to say.
No, I don't think I will, though. That's the funny thing. I think I will hold my tongue and I will say, go figure it out, because you will.
So
You know.
I don't know if we're expecting any political change in Iran soon, but if that happens one day, are you planning to go back to visit, or you just turned this page over, even if it was home at some point?
To be honest, I have been actually in the new book, in Mistress of the Persian Boarding House. One of the very important themes of the book is the idea of home. Because I think Zina struggled, my grandmother struggled with that as well. What is home? Was it Russia? Was it Persia? What was home? I think she always struggled with that too. At the end of the day, I think home to me is not a place. Home to me is what I love. And you know what I love? I love beauty. Now,
Oh,
whether it's Canadian beauty, it's Iranian beauty, it's Egyptian beauty, it's whatever kind of beauty. I love beauty. I love natural beauty. I love beauty that is, beautiful literature. I love beautiful paintings. I love beautiful photography. I love beautiful everything. Beauty makes me happy. So at the end of the day, I think I have made peace that I don't know if I will ever go back to Iran. My grandmother was very sad. I think when she died, she really wanted to see Russia again. And I don't want to be like that. And that also plays into the theme of freedom. Because if we are tied down to a geographical place as a home, we are never free. We are bound. And I don't like being bound. So I have chosen beauty as home.
I love how you see things. Really, I admire that so much.
That is the ultimate freedom, because beauty is everywhere as long as you look.
Are you a Capricorn? I wonder.
No, I'm a Taurus.
Okay.
Stubborn.
Oh, yeah, very. So one last question. I really don't want to wrap up the conversation, but it's like been 1.5 hours. I don't want to leave you, but I've been haunting you for 9 years, so it's worth
I know.
time.
I'm sorry again. It was
No,
just
I loved every minute
busy.
of our talk, really. It was great. So one last question. How do you hope your legacy will be? A
How
survivor,
do I hope what? I didn't hear that.
your legacy will be a
Oh,
survivor, a writer, a mother, or a feminist, or all of them.
I really hope that the world sees what I'm trying to do, that I'm trying to bear witness to what I have lived. I'm not trying to prove anything. Because again, I don't know. Is there God? Well, I think there is, but I don't know. Is there heaven? Well, I kind of hope there is, but I don't know. So there's so much I don't know. There's so much maybe in where I am. And I really hope that the world would see this, that I believe I really do not know a lot about most things, but I have experienced certain things and I would like to share them with the world. And I hope to have time to create more literature. If if I get the opportunity, that would be great. I really do not ask for more. But I really want the world to remember that I'm really aware of the fact that I know very little, but at the same time, what I do know based on experience, I know really well.
So, wow. Marina, listening to you today, I really felt that your story is not only about Iran, it's about all of us everywhere, wherever we live. Thank you for showing us that memory, truth, and courage. You showed us that these principles are the foundation of freedom. I hope your story continues to reach people all around the world who really feel that you are their voice and they are voiceless. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. It has really been such an inspiring talk. I'm inviting you to come to Egypt, where I can take you around and show you beauty. I
That
promise.
would be lovely. That would be lovely. I take you up on that. Hopefully,
I'm
life will
waiting
be
for you.
kind, and that, I will get the opportunity, especially once the next book is out and about. Um, Hopefully, I have traveled a lot, but I have not been to Egypt. And Rasha, thank you so much for your patience with me, because when you got in touch with me for a while, my life was very busy and very turbulent, and a lot of things were going on, and I had to take charge of things and figure out where things are going. So I really appreciate your patience,
You're
and you
definitely
have been very kind and very generous.
the word
And
for
I
it.
thank you and all Egyptians and everybody, man, woman, all of them, but especially the women, because we are usually the ones who are under attack every single time there is some sort of a political or ideological or religious or some sort of turbulence. We are the first ones who are thrown under the bus. So
Victims forever.
I wouldn't say, no, I wouldn't
No,
say
no, I was
victims.
just
I
kidding.
would say we are victimized, but I very much hope that we can rise and show the world what we are made of,
Having
that we
people.
are mothers. We are mothers. I don't think there's any word in any language more powerful than the word mother. It's the most powerful
I
word.
guess having people like you around would always be a push to a change, and everybody of us have to, work in his place to make a change on in our places. So
And we will slowly but surely.
sure. Thank you so much. Have a lovely morning. It's your part.
Thank you. Thank you. And you have a lovely evening.
And we're waiting for you again in Egypt. You just promised.
Amen to that.
Thank you so much. Take
Take
care.
care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.